News Radio 700 WLW.
55 million of us are expected to travel on the highways this Thanksgiving weekend. That's according to AAA. And that's 2 million, actually 1.7 million more than what traveled last year. And when we get out there, we're finding that gasoline prices are cheaper for some reason this year. National average for price of regular gas, $3.31 on Monday. 65,000 gas stations are selling gas at $2.99 per gallon or less right now. In fact, according to GasBuddy.com, you're up around the Franklin area. You're seeing gas around $2.83, $2.84. Lebanon has it for $2.85. You get closer to downtown Cincinnati, it's more expensive. East side of Cincinnati, North Cincinnati, obviously, it's always more expensive. But even some places in Mason have gas for under $3 a gallon. How is this happening? How is this happening when we are not drill baby drilling here in the United States? How is this happening? Is Joe Biden tapping into our reserve again to completely deflate prices for political reasons? Is it a question of supply and demand? Is cheap, dirty gas or oil coming in from places like Venezuela? What are the answers to these questions? Standing by is a man who knows. This is a man who we had to get out of the oil fields in West Texas just a few minutes ago. He has oil on his hands, all over his body. He's drilling. He's somebody that in later years ago would have been known as a wildcatter. That's how big R.T. Trevino is. He is Pecos Country Oil. And he joins us here now on 700 WLW. Did you strike black gold today, R.T.? Did you strike black gold?
Yes, sir. We have struck black gold, and God is good. We cannot complain, Ken, and I do mean that. How are you? And thank you for the introduction.
Yes, and how are you on this glorious day, RT? I hope you're doing well. And, you know, I'm astounded that gas is cheap. This is a big demand weekend. Wouldn't prices be high? You think big demand, big prices. What's happening here?
Economics 101 has flipped upside down, but as I've told people for the last, I think 4 to 8 years now, that we're living in an upside down world. I voted for Donald Trump twice for president, and who would have ever guessed that, right? And I'll probably do it a third time. So it's an upside down world. You mentioned there that in Ohio right now, the average price is about $3.31, and here in Texas, we're at about $2.75. We're down from last year, and this is just due to the EIA, which stands for the Energy Information Administration, and they've released the statement that says that electric vehicles will slowly erode the demand for fossil fuels here over the next 10 to 15 years. So because of what they said, the prices have only continued to drop. In fact, the barrel of oil has been fluctuating between $74 and $78 over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so the EIC said this. I don't trust any government agency. EIC is a government agency, correct?
That is correct, and I'm not going to confirm or deny that I agree with your statement there for your listeners. All right, Ken? And it's the EIA, the Energy Information Administration. All right. And when you go look, two great people that I like to talk to and follow are Stuart Turley and Jeff Krimmel, and they've actually both been, Ken, on my podcast, The Crude Truth. If you can imagine a graph and you look at the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and the reserves that we have here in America, we have almost totally depleted those reserves. So our, oil that we have on hand has dropped tremendously. So guess what? That supply has gone down, and yet the price of oil has done nothing but continue to almost stay the same, fluctuate a little here and there. So that's very interesting that price has really stayed the same. Well, that does cause concern.
It would raise, again, I did a whole half hour earlier before you came on about conspiracy theories on this, the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination and all the conspiracy theories that have developed over the course of time in these 60 years. But if the EIA is saying that, and it's because that 10 years from now, electric vehicles are going to be all over the place, it would seem to me that they're playing the game a little bit there with oil right now and oil production right now. Think about this. The strategic reserve has been depleted to an all-time low. If indeed we run into some emergency in this country, God forbid we're sucked into one of these wars or one that may still be in the offing, and we have to dip into that reserve even more and get down to a point where it's almost depleted, that would almost seem like it would force feed the public to buy electric cars, which they're not buying right now. Now, some would say, well, these electric vehicles are the wave of the future, and they're great, and they'll save you money and this and that. But up until about 3 weeks ago, when I saw a commercial for Chevy, that Chevy is coming out with an electric vehicle that seems to be more affordable. God knows what it looks like inside. It could be a jalopy with no air conditioning and a radio that, only gets, shortwave radio stations. But the point being is, it almost seems like there's a little bit of something afoot here to, if not take away the taste for fossil fuel-driven cars, force us to lose that taste. Now, tell me I'm a conspiracy theorist here, RT.
Well, I will say this. Your single bullet theory could be right, especially with the way the prices, because like I said, the U.S. crude oil inventories have been just depleted, and yet the price has been remarkably stable so far. And that makes no sense, because you figure we've gone from 120 million barrels in our strategic petroleum reserve to about 20 million barrels. And why is the price still the same? And then you mentioned Chevrolet. I will say this, that back in the early 90s, they actually created and built an EV1. And it was their first electric vehicle, and it actually was a pretty good vehicle. Mm-hmm. There's a whole documentary called "Who Killed the Electric Car?" But anyway, no, vehicles are not going to stop using the combustible engine anytime soon. The other thing on why, Ken, that we may be seeing these prices do what they're doing is OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, mm-hmm. They're saying they want that $100 oil, okay? And what they're noticing is that their own members are producing more than the quotas that they're supposed to be doing right now. So they're not going to make any more oil cuts. They're just going to do their best to control their actual members to stop producing more. And one of those members is Iran. So let's not forget about that they have now brought on somewhere between 4 to 6 million barrels of oil to the market a day over the last few months.
So if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, OPEC meets on Sunday of this coming Sunday, and it was thought at that point that they would exercise production cuts. But what you're saying is what they're going to do, if I heard you correctly, what you're saying they're going to do is basically just keep production as to where it is right now and control some of the other rogue members of OPEC, like Iran, from producing more. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. And, one reason why the $100 oil is a perfect price for them is they know that the United States shale revolution that we had will not gain momentum again. They are afraid of the United States and our shale. The great Daniel Yergin, who wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Prize, that talks about the entire history of the oil and gas industry, he just wrote the other day that they need to watch what we do, and that if they keep $100 oil, we can't just go drill, baby, drill like, we should be doing at $100 oil, and that will also help this price stay where it is or let it grow just a little bit. And so that's just something else that shows that, hey, even though we may not be drilling new wells, the world still has America on watch, and they are noticing us to make sure that that they know what we can do. Because technically, in some forms and fashion, we still are truly energy independent. We're still exporting more oil than we ever have. And in fact, to all your listeners out there, believe it or not, we are producing more oil today under this administration than we did under President Trump. And the reason why is, if you can just imagine, we've opened up the spigots, Ken, so much over the last 2 years that our oil and gas companies, rather than investing in new drills because it's too expensive, they're just opening up the spigots to everything else. And that's part of the reason why you're seeing all these large mergers and acquisitions right now, is all these larger companies are just buying inventory of oil so that hopefully down the road they can go drill more.
Yeah, but eventually wells run dry. Eventually you're going to have to start drilling again, or we're going to be right back to where we were or are at this point. I mean, you just can't say, hey, it's just going to go forever. Hey, listen, WTI, West Texas Intermediate, it was in a bear market last week. It was down 22% from September's closing. I only raised that because it goes back to where gas prices are in some areas of the country and some areas of the greater Cincinnati area. But the fact is if OPEC does what we just talked about on Sunday, those prices are going to go up. I mean, this could be very short-lived. This thing could go right back up to $3.40, $3.50 $3.50 a gallon quickly, correct?
You're absolutely right, and that's where the single bullet theory will blow up in our face.
Yeah.
And all I'm telling people on my podcast and anything else is like, you know what, just be prepared, because at some point the bottom is going to fall out because of the things that you said. The fact that, because I think that, renewable energy is truly failing. So our Energy Information Administration, I think, has this wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
that
EIA
renewables are not going to take them. We talked about.
The EIA, yeah. Yeah, so I just don't sense that, and again, it's not because I drive a car with a combustible engine. I just don't sense that there's an appetite, a wide appetite now for electric vehicles, and this is a way, if indeed this is what's going on, for us to be not forced into it, but absolutely shoved into getting these things, and they're playing with numbers that are 10 years down the road and affecting your life and my life right now.
Yes. And, there was a great group here, the Texas Public Policy Foundation did an amazing little study on exposing the true cost of electric vehicles. And that when you actually look at the cost if you add in the subsidies, you add in everything else, that kilowatt hour is not you're not paying $1 something per kilowatt to charge your vehicle. You're actually paying $17 to $18 per kilowatt if we added in all the subsidies and everything else.
Yeah. Well, RT, I appreciate the insight. I know you got to get out there because God knows what's coming out of the turf where you are right now. There could be one of those gushers you're going to have to, what was that guy's name that down there in Texas, Red, what was his name? He'd go in there and cap wells and things like that. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, yeah,
Red Adair, the famous firefighter, Red Adair, yes, sir.
I think Red's dead. I think he's gone to the big rig in the sky, but you never know what might happen this afternoon, and you personally could drive gasoline down another $3 or $4. We might be paying you to buy gasoline. It's unbelievable. RT Trevino, Pecos Country Oil. It's always great having you on. And RT, you have a great Thanksgiving, okay?
Thank you, Ken, and I wish you, your family, and all of Ohio a very happy Thanksgiving as well.
There he is, one of the true wildcatters in the oil industry. RT gets his hands dirty, gets that smudge on him, and gets that to your gasoline tank in your car like that.